The smallpox was always present, filling the churchyard with corpses, tormenting with constant fears all whom it had not yet stricken, leaving on those whose lives it had spared the hideous traces of its power, turning the babe into a changeling, at which the mother shuddered, and making the eyes and cheeks of a betrothed maiden objects of horror to the lover.
In 1980, smallpox, a disease that had killed 500 million people in just the 20th century, was officially eradicated from the planet. Smallpox was the first and so far only disease to have been eradicated from Earth. However, it required a Herculean effort in order to accomplish this feat. From 1967 to 1977, past and present explorations created a multitude of encounters and exchanges with people of many different backgrounds across oceans, continents, and cultures. Eradicating smallpox showed what humanity could do if the world had a common goal. Smallpox was a lethal disease that killed 30% of all that it infected. However, it wasn't until 1796 that there was a strategy to tackle smallpox. British physician Edward Jenner had created what became the first vaccine against a disease. The vaccine was related to smallpox and prepared the body if smallpox were to strike. The idea was both embraced and shunned. In 1800, Thomas Jefferson said,
"Every friend of humanity must look with pleasure on this discovery vaccination, by which one more evil is withdrawn from the condition of man."
On the contrary, satirist James Gilray drew a comic in 1802 representing those who were vaccinated to morph into cows. Religions even joined the debate. People were scared of the possible side effects of vaccination. Because of this, it was nearly 150 years later when the world finally started to take real action. In 1958, Viktor Zhdanov, Deputy Minister of Health in the USSR, spoke at the 11th World Health Assembly, expressing the mission of eradicating smallpox worldwide. It wasn't until 1966 when the mission started to be taken seriously. By then, about 44 countries were reporting smallpox. On January 1st, 1967, the Smallpox Eradication Program, also known as the SEP, was officially underway. However, the idea of eradication had been looked at as ridiculous. In 1965, French evolutionary biologist and essayist René Dubos wrote,
"Even if genuine eradication of a pathogen or virus on a worldwide scale were theoretically or practically possible, the enormous effort reaching the goal would probably make the attempt economically and humanly unwise."
Since the invention of vaccination, many improvements were made to the smallpox vaccine. A new method called freeze-drying was invented by British scientist Dr. Leslie Collier. The freeze-dry vaccine was very heat-stable and could encounter 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. This helped the SEP to be successful in high-climate countries. According to Donald Henderson, director of the SEP,
"When we began the Global Eradication Program, one of our first and most important tasks was to obtain enough heat-stable, freeze-dried vaccine to permit its use in all countries, even under tropical conditions."
Better quality vaccine through freeze-drying resulted in stronger immunity from smallpox, which had been an issue for a long time. Another great innovation used for the eradication mission was the bifurcated needle. The needle was invented by Dr. Benjamin Rubin, a scientist at Wyeth Laboratories. Richard Preston, who wrote the foreword for Smallpox, The Death of a Disease, said that
"It was a piece of sharpened steel wire that had a double point. It held a very small droplet of the vaccine between its points. It was very important to the eradication of the disease."
the bifurcated needle required between 15 and 20 holes in a small area in the arm, where the vaccine would be inserted. They costed a quarter of a cent, and the needle was able to vaccinate 4 times as many people compared to different technology used in the past. When the program originally started, there was one main strategy used for eradication: the vaccination of at least 80% of the population. However, it was learned that surveillance and vaccination could decrease transmission during outbreaks. This was originally discovered by Dr. William Foge, an American advisor working in Nigeria. When a shipment of vaccine had not arrived for use, Foge had to come up with a strategy with limited materials. This was the start of the surveillance and containment strategy. According to When Plague Strikes by James Giblin, instead of performing mass vaccinations throughout the country, he and his staff waited until an outbreak of smallpox was reported in a particular household or village. Then they traveled to the place and vaccinated only those people in the vicinity who might have been exposed to the disease. This strategy proved effective, as it was used to eradicate 20 African countries within 3.5 years. It helped push the mission forward because it would limit the exchange of the virus. Even though the explorations were set, many problems were encountered. One of those problems was religion. In India, a smallpox goddess named Sitala was worshipped, with temples entirely dedicated to her. According to the book When Plague Strikes, worshippers of the Indian smallpox goddess Sitala feared that she would vent her anger on them if they allowed themselves to be vaccinated. The health workers had to convince these believers that the goddess would approve of vaccination. Religion and dense living conditions in India influenced the country to be one of the last to eradicate smallpox. In addition to that, there is also direct fear of the idea of vaccination. To try to locate smallpox, bribery was required. Zafar Hussain, who worked in India, says that
it was decided to fix a reward of 10 rupees to anyone who would tell us about a smallpox-affected village. Because of this reward system, many affected villages were detected.
Step by step, smallpox was becoming a thing of the past. The Western Hemisphere eradicated smallpox in April 1971, when Brazil became free of smallpox. However, some countries got reinfected. According to Dr. Tomislav Mestrovic,
setbacks were confirmed as certain countries, such as Bangladesh, became reinfected.
By September 1973, smallpox existed in only 5 countries: Bangladesh, Ethiopia, Pakistan, India, and Nepal. The last case of smallpox was reported in 1977 in Mursa, Somalia. On May 8, 1980, the 33rd World Health Assembly declared that smallpox was dead. In 1980, smallpox, a disease that killed 500 million people in just the 20th century, was officially eradicated from the planet. The eradication of smallpox was possible because the exploration of medical technology, the encounters of doctors and scientists around the world, and the exchange of information and vaccines across oceans and continents. Out of the smallpox eradication, an important lesson was learned. Humanity can do anything as long as there's cooperation. Even in the height of the Cold War between the USSR and the United States, there was a common goal: eradicating smallpox. The eradication of smallpox shows what is possible. Neither cultural differences, religious beliefs, nor myths kept the eradication of smallpox from happening.